Welcome everyone to the GAE retired lunch bunch on this cold, at least in Athens, Georgia, December morning. And as you probably know, we welcome all public school employees, but this event is only for GAE members and staff. So if you are not a GAE member or part of the GAE staff, please sign in by putting your name, personal email address, cell phone number, and school system in the chat to me, Karen Solheim. And everyone, please note that you must receive prior permission from the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director before recording audio or video of this meeting. And social media posts concerning this meeting shall not contain information about the specific content of the meeting, although the sharing of general information about GAE and GAE events is encouraged. Please be courteous to other attendees and request their permission before posting photographs containing their images. If you have questions about social media posting of GAE events, please contact the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director. And if you need that information, please just let me know in the chat. And again, so glad everybody is here today. We are excited. I did mention my name is Karen Solheim. I'm secretary of the GAE Retired Organization, but I believe I was on the GAE Board of Directors when Peggy Cochran was our interim director for GAE. And Peggy, I'll allow you to say a little bit more, I hope you will say a little bit more about who you are and your experience in the association, because Peggy is one of those people who is just a fount of information. And we're so glad that she has agreed to take us through a journey here at the GAE Retired Lunch Bunch. So with that, Peggy, you are on.
Well, thank you. And I thank you, Karen, and I thank you, Patrick, for allowing me to be here and present to you today. Yes, it was during that, the COVID stuff started in February of one year, or March in one year, and then rolled around. And I came in that second year that you were in the COVID shutdown. So it was a strange time anyway. And of course, we were all trying to operate from, I was at the office, but not many were. And we were all operating from home as well as the schools. So it was a strange time, but I loved being in Georgia. I loved meeting all the people. I made lifelong friends, and I will tell you that I think you've come a long, long way since then. I'm very proud of you. You will, if you ever get on your social media or um, on some of your Facebook pages, you'll see where I like when you post your membership growth, and I like when you're doing workshops. I was just there in Georgia for your fall conference, and I did present workshops, so I am very pleased to be back to continue it. That's a better message to me than than saying thank you and we'll see you 10 years from now. Because I probably won't be here. In 1 month, I turn 81. That means that I will. I'm winding down some. I think I just came home from being in Kansas for a year as their interim executive director. They've hired a new executive director now, and doing quite well. Um, I would also say to you that um, I will give you a little bit of my background. I taught school for 21 years. I was a high school speech, drama, debate, discussion, English, literature, all those, that kind of teacher for 21 years. And then this was the 29th year that I had worked in some capacity for either Missouri NEA. I was in Louisiana for a year, then I was in Georgia, and then in Kansas. So I have completed 50 years of work. I've been retired 3 times. And I may this one may take, I don't know, except I'll keep doing some of the kinds of things that I've been doing. I hope that this is informal. If you have to go in and out or walk away or whatever, please do so. If you have questions, um, you can. I would assume that you can put them in the chat, or you can um, put your hand up, and we'll try to take care of that. Um, I wanted to know how many of you were it, and I don't know how I'm going to get that because a lot of you don't have your pictures on, but we're in the workshop that I did at the fall conference because that's like part one, and and that was like we called it finding your voice, and Karen had specifically asked me to do this as a follow up. After you've found your voice, now let's use it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, so if you have a question, please put it in the chat or in some way. We'll make it known. Um, or at the end, we'll just take all the questions and try to get them answered, or one way or another. I don't know how we'll handle it. Karen, you want to add something to that?
We make noise, use your voice, and I asked Peggy to do this presentation, bearing in mind that the General Assembly starts the second Monday in January. But then I'm also thinking about, I mean, we know in the US Senate, we're trying to get a bill in place to be heard. We're trying to get the bill that's in place to be heard that would repeal the GPO
GPO
weapon.
WEP. Mm-hmm.
And the last thing before I turn it back to Peggy is I think using your voice happens every single day, whether it's involved with elected officials or just getting the painters to do right at your house. I mean, I think we need to be good, positive advocates in whatever we're doing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, not only legislatively, but just in life. So thanks, Peggy.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying some of that. So my husband was a 35-year teacher and died 6 years ago of Alzheimer's. I have 3 kids. 2 are retired teachers now, and one daughter is a lawyer still working, and I have 7 grandkids and no great grandkids. None of my grandkids are married. So and one of them you are blessed to have as an employee. I don't know if any of you've met Wick Kincaid, but he loves Georgia GAE, and he works hard. I'm very proud of him. So just wanted to put in a little plug for him there, because he's my grandson. And of course, Craig, your executive director, is one of my very best friends. So I don't know that he's on here. I don't see him, but anyway, he said he would be driving. He might try to get on by phone. I don't know. But what I want to go ahead and do is let's talk about using your voice. And your voice is really, you can have a written voice and you can have a spoken voice. Well, your spoken voice is can convey feelings that your written voice cannot convey. But there are lots of people, I mean, there are situations where you'll have to use written voice too. But making that voice heard is the biggest thing that I want to be able to talk to you about. Um, if you will, as a speech teacher, that's what I was. I always told my students who were giving a speech, never apologize for any part of your speech. I don't know how many get up and say, I'm going to apologize. I didn't get through with the research, or I'm going to apologize because I didn't do. I say never apologize for any part of your speech. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to apologize if I shock you. I'm not going to apologize if something I say offends you, because I'm talking from talking points of the NEA and our all our state associations, our constitutions, and whatever. I'm not going to apologize if I touch your heart and make you cry, because I sometimes do that, and that comes in telling our stories and whatever. And I hope that you will have can loosen your feelings enough to be able to tell stories that will do the same. And I hope that I can do all these things and come away feeling um, like we have had a great meeting and we have shared some good experiences. One of the hardest things for me to learn, I mean, I always stepped out front. I always had my hand up first in the class. I always, never hesitated to speak up and stand up and whatever. But one of the things I had to learn was to be a good listener, because I was not, period. And I don't know how many people that I meet and talk to, and they're not the same. They're like me, like I was. Like they're trying to get, okay, well, you got to listen to me. One of the things that you have to learn is to be a good listener. Karen, can you share that first page with us?
I can. Just a nanosecond. Here we go.
And I want to tell all of you that you're going to get these sheets, so you don't have to take notes. All right. So we're going to talk about some of these things. But to start using your voice, there are 10 commandments for good listening. And I'm going to apologize because I've got a little whiny baby here. My kitty cat is wanting to be a part of this, and he's not going to get to do so. So he's not going to be very happy. You got to stop talking. That's number one. That's something that was the hardest part for me to learn, was stop talking and listen to what others are saying. Put the speaker at ease. If they're uptight, say, calm down, it's okay. Tell me how you feel. You know, ask, help put them at ease. Show them that you want to listen. If you're saying, okay, I'll give you a minute, that doesn't mean you want to listen. You got to show them that you want to hear what they have to say. And many times there are distractions. And of course, now with all of the social media and our phones and everything else, there are distractions right in our face. There are distractions in our hands, in our pockets. So we have to minimize distractions so people feel comfortable saying what they need to say. Put yourself in the speaker's place. So be sure that you think about where they are and what they're trying to say, and you try to understand what they're saying. Be patient. Hold your temper. And this was go easy on the criticism and argument. This was another difficult thing for me because I'm a debater. I'm a negotiator. I'm a bargainer. I started out as an adversarial bargainer. That's the old form of bargaining where, you bang heads and you say, and what's on your mind, and you go to it with them. And of course, now I train interest based bargaining, which is more like the win win process. And I've learned to go easy on the criticism, make it constructive, make it light. And I go easy on the argument. I can say the exact same thing I want to say without anger and make my point. Ask questions for clarification so that you know and you can understand, or ask questions to help lead them through what it is they want to say. And listen actively. Don't appear to be bored or not interested. Listen actively. Um, as you ask the questions, talk about how that could be woven into what you're talking about, and how their skills and their views and all of that can work with what we're working on. Those are the 10 commandments for good listening. And here are the 8 wrong ways to listen. Editing. Oh, you only hear what you want to hear. This is what I do sometimes when we have family gatherings. Because I have relatives that I don't even want to hear anything that they have to say, mostly, especially about politics and about religion. So I do edit. I want to keep loving them and having them as part of the family and inviting them and whatever. But but editing is something that you get used to doing, and then when you get used to it, you do it with everyone, and that's something I have to battle. Think about what you do. Rehearsing. While they're talking, you're thinking about what you want to say in response. And that is something that you don't need to do. Denying. You focus on finding a hidden message rather than listening to what the other person is saying. So you're thinking, well, she's not saying what she really means. What does she really mean? Daydreaming. You let your mind wander. And when you do that, that becomes very evident that you're not listening. Personalizing. One of my daughters, is an empath. And she thinks that when the football team gets in a huddle, they're talking about her. We have to quit even believing that. We have to know that it's not about us. It's about the person who's talking and what they mean. Switching. You change the subject quickly as soon as the person starts speaking. That's kind of like editing, except you don't even hear because you changed the subject to something else. Arguing, you focus on finding something to judge about what they've said, and you take an opposite view and you begin to talk. And again, that turns the person off. And as much so as agreeing, if you nod your head and like you agree with everything they're saying, and it's evident that you don't, but you're nodding your head to avoid conflict, then that is also a turnoff for the people that you're trying to talk to. We have to think about all the reasons why our voice is needed. First of all, as retired teachers and retired educators, you've got experiences that nobody else has. You've got stories that nobody else has. You have wins where you have won some kind of battle that nobody knows about. And you have losses that hurt and are painful and we could all learn from, that nobody's heard about. Issue-based organizing actually is just flat out organizing, because every organizing um, event is an issue. There's an issue behind it, something. It's either about membership, and we do a lot of organizing for membership, or it's about a contract issue. Like maybe your contract says that you have a 50-minute planning period, duty free. But what if they break that up into 3 pieces through the day? And you get 15 minutes one time and 20 minutes one time and 15 minutes one time. Is that a 50-minute planning period, duty free? I think you need, that's a contract issue, because they're violating the contract when they're fudging on whatever. That's something you need to be able to speak up about. Um, a non-contract issue. I still am just amazed at the laws that Florida has passed that have bound teachers to not be able to talk about many parts of our history. One of the biggest parts is slavery. Can't even talk about it, can't say the word. people are being warned and threatened and terminated because they have refused to give up the teaching of our valid history. And we've got to learn how to speak up against that. You're so close to Florida, and many of your legislators belong to ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. And many of the laws that Florida has passed are coming right out of that group. And they pass those laws around to all the states. So if it hasn't been introduced yet in Georgia, it will be. And that's important to know. You will find the same wording for the same laws or the same proposed laws from Florida to California to Maine to Missouri. We see the same language being proposed, and that's because it's being distributed by the American Legislative Exchange Council. So it's important for us to be very diligent and watchful to make sure that we are stopping those kinds of things. I don't know how you live with that. And I don't know how a teacher lives with that because I think it would become very, very difficult. Um, Community organizing, and that has a lot to do with let's I think things like book bans. Some of the most successful um, campaigns to prevent book bans have been done by the community. The community says it's ridiculous. You're saying we can't read Mark Twain, or it's ridiculous we can't read To Kill a Mockingbird, or whatever. The community says and steps up and helps with that. But they're never going to know what's going on for the most part unless somebody has a voice from within or who has a voice who knows what's going on and can bring forth those issues. Organizing for well-being, and that would be like with all kinds of environmental issues, and health and insurance, and even to the point of a woman's control of her body. And that's the area where I thought I don't mean to offend, but we have a position that a woman should be able to control her body. And that's an important thing that at some point we may have to work on again. Right now, we have um, a federal. We've lost Roe v. Wade, and it's been pushed to the states. As you know, I worked very hard on the Missouri one. A lot of our retired teachers were involved in that. I want you to know, all across the state of Missouri, where we worked very hard at local levels, and we did pass the that the legislature, which is the majority Republican in Missouri, could not put restrictions on what would be the same as what Roe v. Wade would have been if it would have been in place. So we worked hard on that. We were successful and proud of what we had done. But a lot of that came from a lot of work from retired people. So I want you to know that that's something that it's important and the voice can be heard. We do organizing. We use our voice for membership and organizing to make changes in our members' lives in all kinds of ways. We do organizing and use our voice to build power. And one of the things that is important, I think, in a definition, and a lot of this struggle is over power. But one of the things that many people don't understand or realize is that when you share power, you multiply it. You don't diminish power. You share it, you multiply it. You give power, you allow power to to grow in groups that can add so much to it. So that's the kind of argument that we want to make. We organize to seek justice. And there's so many places where I see right now, I mean, for everybody to be labeling immigrants all as evil and criminal, and when all of us are immigrants. I mean, the president elect stands on stage with Elon Musk, who's an immigrant. You know, and yet we try to label all these other people. Everybody who's come across the border, according to him, is evil. And we know that's not true. So we have to seek justice for whatever. We have to help people participate in democracy. We have to protect the rules that are made about elections and when you can vote and how you can vote and what paperwork you need to be able to vote. I heard one group talking on television and said that at all times we were going to have to carry our papers with us. We would, if asked, we would have to prove our citizenship. I mean, that becomes more and more troublesome in a time when we're, we would we should not have to be doing that. We talk about climate and environmental issues. I live at Lake of the Ozarks, and for the first time this year, we had pelicans come to the Lake of the Ozarks. They're here right now. There's 6 of them. If if that's not climate change, I can't tell you what is. They love the sunny southern weather, and they have come this far up because the weather fooled them, because the weather is changing. And that we've been over the years getting more and more seabirds coming up for this time of year. But this one, the pelicans, we had swans. Now we're getting pelicans. So just changing, and you can look around and see it. To improve our health and our length of life, so on. Those kinds of things are the things that we also can use our voice with and lift it up and let our issues be known. Whether we write to the editor of a newspaper, or whether we stand up in front of a group of people and speak, or whether we're at the legislature lobbying, we need your voice to be there and to be heard. So we're going to talk briefly about one-on-one conversations. When you come into a group and they're not this group, they're not your group necessarily, but you're in a group. You're there to make your voice heard. You're going to have to learn how to do one-on-one conversations. Because let's say you're not the speaker. I mean, okay, while I was in Kansas, we had a progressive dinner and all kinds of people were there. Both parties, although I would have argued whether some of the people who were there were progressive or not, but both parties. And so we were all there, and I was walking around the room, meeting people, shaking hands and whatever. And somebody said to me, "What are you running for?" And I go, "Nothing. I'm just meeting people, you know." But that's one of the things that we have to learn how to do, not just work a room, but learn how to not to approach people and to do this one-on-one kind of conversation. You could have these one-on-one conversations if you were like going to be part of a blitz for GAE. One of the things that GAE does so well is to put a group of people together and send them into a particular school setting and sign up and talk to people about membership, talk to people about GAE and sign them up. They do that very well. One of the things that I've found is that lots of people like to hear from you. having been in the classroom or having been in a school setting, they want to hear from you. You have so many things that you can share with them. I you walk into so you could be part of an organizing team for a blitz. I think that's something that would be wonderful for some of you to volunteer to be a part of. And I know that your leadership and your governance leadership and your staff leadership would love to have that kind of help. One of the things that retired educators in Missouri do is they go back to um their district that they retired from, and they meet with the leadership and they say, I would like to help you do whatever it is you need to do. If it's at the beginning of school, I'd like to help you to get people signed up for membership or whatever, but we want to participate with you in some way. That is something that's valuable. And I believe, and it worked so well. And that's one of the projects that the retired group in Missouri does is many of them at the beginning of the year are working with getting to know and working with their leadership back at their local level. So that's another in a school setting, getting ready to talk to people. These one-on-one conversations begin to make a big difference. If we will have, let's share the one-on-one conversation piece. Okay, why are these conversations important? Well, you can begin a conversation about membership. I can't tell you as an executive director how many calls we get from people in Missouri. They belonged only to that old organization, the MSTA, and they would get in trouble, need help, and they called and they couldn't get help from that organization. And then they would call us and they would say, I need help. Can I join? And one of the things you have to say to them is, when your house is on fire, you can't buy fire insurance. You have to, what we can do though, is we can give you some advice. You can join. We can give you advice. We can give you help from your UD, but we can't take a legal case because it can't get paid for if you weren't a member when it occurred. And that's a sad part of what you have to tell somebody who's in trouble. But they've learned a valuable lesson, and that is they joined the wrong organization. For years, they've been throwing money away to an organization that's not going to help them in that area. Page is the same way. Page is not going to be the help they need if they need any kind of assistance. If they need an advocate, that is not what Page does. Yes, Page is cheap, but you get what you pay for, period. And so that's what is going to be very important. So you can begin this conversation about membership. You can begin a conversation to discover issues at a school site. One of the things that we know is that a whole lot of people are afraid to speak up. You can lead them to a place where they will they will uncover from within themselves the issues that are causing them so much trouble and that are not being dealt with. And they can even air a personal dissatisfaction or issue, something that's just personal. So those things are things that at face to face you might want to start talking to person about in this one-on-one conversation. You should always use open-ended questions. you don't ask questions that they can answer with a yes or no. You use open-ended questions. So your questions might look like, why do you think that's happening? Why is the administrator doing that? Why are you so upset with that? You can ask the whys. All of those are open-ended questions. They can't say yes or no to them. They have to give you more information. How did that happen? Um, how are people feeling about that? How can this be being done with what you have in your contract? How? You can ask the hows one more time, open-ended. When is this going to occur? When did it occur? When are you meeting? And so on. Again, they've got to explain things. And where? And who is responsible? You might lead them with something that says, tell me more about this area. Tell me about this area. I would say that one of the things as executive director, I got a call from a new UNICEF director who was in rural Missouri. And she said, is there a law that says all teachers or all, teachers, she asked, um, get a duty-free lunch period? And I said, no. And she said, damn, I was hoping that was in the law. Now we can't do anything about it. And I said, oh, no, no. Yes, you can do something about it. Well, she said, what? And I said, you can organize around it. I said, do you have a PTA or a PTO? And she said, yeah, we got a PTO. And I said, well, do you ever go? And she said, I don't know if she said secretary or, oh, she said my teacher, one of my teachers is secretary of the PTO. And I said, they need to take that and put that on the agenda for the PTO meeting. I said, when is it? She said, it's next Monday. I said, okay, it needs to go on the agenda. They put it on the agenda of the PTO. They were totally taking from the elementary their lunchtime. They told the teachers they had to walk the kids to the lunchroom. They had to sit down with them. They had to eat with them and take care of them. And they had to walk them back to the classroom. There was not 1 minute there for the teacher to have any kind of duty-free lunch. So that was what they talked about. They told the story to the PTO. The PTO was totally upset. And they decided to take the issue on. They made signs that said, our teachers deserve a duty-free lunch. And they went around, it was a small town, went around the town. Some of them owned businesses. Some of them had relatives who owned businesses. Some of them had friends who owned businesses. They put these signs in the front of the windows of all these stores and everything. The board meeting was that Thursday night. And by the time Thursday night came, they had 100 or so people at the board meeting wanting to talk about duty-free lunch. And the, they had two or three who they allowed to speak, and then they just cut it off. And somebody made a motion, and they said, we're going to give all our teachers a duty-free lunch. We've been doing it in the past. We're going to do it now. However we have to do it. If we have to hire monitors or whatever, we're going to have to find the money, but we're going to do it because you're right. And of course, the board members saw the writing on the wall, which was very simply, you got people who elected you sitting right out there in that audience telling you, you better do something about this. And that's the voice. So we have to do that. We have to bring those issues to the forefront. We have to learn how to speak about them. We have to be calm with them, but we have to make sure that they're being heard. So just because there's not a law doesn't mean you can't organize around something. You can organize around anything. You can speak up for anything. So when you have this one-on-one conversation, somebody says, "Well, I'm a I'm a music teacher and I get no planning time." There's something you've discovered that's probably a violation of their contract. So they're just more and more things are a violation of the law, are they're being discriminated against because other people are being treated differently. So you just keep listening and learning more. One-on-one conversation should last at least 5 minutes. In other words, you don't just have a one shot and walk away. You should make 5 minutes is quite a long time if you find it you're doing it. So you start with something. You walk up to somebody, shake their hand, say, "Hi, my name is Peggy Cochran, and I'm here to learn about what's going on, and tell me about your day today." Or a question like, "What is your job here at the school? What do you like most about it?" Or what's your major concern about your work? Or if you had extra money for public education, how would you spend it? Those are open-ended sample questions that will get anybody, or it should get anybody to talking. So those are the kinds of questions that we want to make sure that people are getting into. Um, so one of the things that um, I had hoped um, that we would be able to do is to practice. Um, and let's see, it is for your time is I'm checking 12:15 or close here.
Yes, and
Uh,
I need about 3 or 4 minutes at the very end.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is move on um, to talking a little bit about your stories, because one of the things that happens is that because you've had all of these experiences in a public school setting, there are so many things, lessons that you have learned that you can share with new teachers, even teachers who've been in the field for a long time. When you introduce yourself and they say, okay, they're and you start, usually you'll start with like this one-on-one. If you're doing one-on-one kinds of things, you'll start with what we just went through. But if you hear them say, "Well, I'm an elementary teacher and I'm really struggling with discipline, and the administration's not following up on discipline," then you can say, I understand exactly what you're talking about. My daughter is an elementary teacher, and she had a student in a second grade class that she had to give all of her attention to, and at the expense of all the other kids, because he was totally out of control. He was a runner, and every time the door opened, he would be out the door running away. And so she had to spend her entire day, and she had requested that she get a para to be there with him, and they had denied it. So I understand exactly what you're talking about, because even though this may be a situation where a child needs attention and a para, they need the special education kinds of things, it still is something that throws a monkey wrench into you being able to handle the classroom and teach and do what you need to do. And I understand that. So you can begin and weave a story in from what they have said, because it, she had to go all the way up to the administration at the central office. She taped the student, took the tape, went up and made them come. She said, I want you to come down. I want you to come in my classroom. I want you to sit there and I want you to see what's going on. And she had to go through all of that in order to make a difference for the kids who were being punished by not having the advantage of a teacher because that teacher had to deal with one student and one student only through the day. So telling your story or telling a story, one that you can share with the group, is the the best thing that you can do. It makes someone identify with what it is that you have to say. Just like I told you the story about the lunchroom and the elementary teachers in a building that were their time had been taken away. I would love for you to have an opportunity at some point in the future to, in one of your meetings, to take a few minutes and think of a story, or from now to then, think of a story that reflects something good that happened, or something bad that happened, or something strange that happened when you were working in a school setting. And you can pick one story and share it with the group of people, because you've got to get used to being able to tell these stories of self. There's so many that are sitting back there in your memory that you've not pulled forward and you've not brought them to share, and they're very important. I would say to you that I tell stories about my classroom. I tell stories about women's issues that occurred in the school setting. When I was pregnant with my first child, I'll never forget, the principal came and motioned for me to come out of the classroom, and I did. And he said, I just wanted to talk to you about, your showing. And I said, what? And he said, you're showing. And I said, are you talking about me being pregnant? He said, yes. And I said, well, I have told everybody I'm pregnant. My husband has too. And he said, well, we frown on you being at school when you're showing. And I said, what am I? I'm sorry. I said, I don't understand. And he said, well, the kids talk about what it is you and your husband have been doing. I said, wait a minute. We're married. I said, if whether you're pregnant or not, you got to, kids, if they're going to talk, they're going to talk, whether you're married or not, whether you're pregnant or not. I mean, that's just going to happen. And he said, well, we really would prefer that you would go on leave. I said, is there a policy that says that? And he said, I'll check on it. I'll be back to you later today. He never came back because there wasn't policy that said that. Um, at that point in my life, you could not take sick leave for pregnancies. Insurance didn't cover pregnancies. And so, that was when I had my son. I had him on December the 11th by cesarean section, and I was back at work on January the 2nd because I couldn't afford to miss any more work. So it was an important story. It's important to know where we were, and we don't ever want to go back there. There's so many things that you can tell. I couldn't get a bank account in my name. I couldn't get a credit card. I couldn't give permission for my tubes to be tied. All of that had to be my husband, not me. And we fought all those battles and we've won them. And it's so important that we don't go back there. And so telling those stories and what you have to go through or would have had to go through if we hadn't fought those battles is an important thing for young people to hear. They take all those things for granted, but they've not been through the things that we have. We who are the age I am are even just a bit younger, just a bit older, but we have fought battles that they haven't had to fight yet. They're getting a feel for that with the Roe v. Wade being taken away. But it can get much, much worse. And we just need to make sure that they're hearing our stories. And they need to hear them. They may not want them, but they need to hear them. And so that's an important thing that I want you to take away from this if we don't tell anything else, if we don't say anything else. So I'd like for you at some point in one of your retired meetings to practice telling a story, telling one of your stories that is a lesson for pretend you're talking to young teachers and it's a lesson for them to learn because those are so valuable. You could be so valuable in the legislature. You should be part, or some of you should be part of the lobbying team. There's so much you can share and tell, and absolutely, I believe in lobbying. That is just the best thing that could happen is if you're there. It's so difficult to get teachers released from work to tell the real stories about the classroom. But you've got those same stories in your repertoire. And those things are things that need to be said and need to be heard because most of those people in the legislature have never been in those classrooms and certainly have never been there trying to teach kids under awful circumstances at times. So it's important for you to be able to share that information. I'll never forget when I was a teacher, probably I had taught 15 years, and we went to a lobby day, and we went in and were at a hearing, and one of the legislators said, "Well, somebody had testified at this hearing and said this might happen or this has happened in a classroom." And they asked somebody, because we were all sitting there just as observers, and they said, "Okay, all these people here are teachers. Did this ever happen to any of you?" I'm sure it didn't. I raised my hand and I said, "Yes, it did. It happened in our school." And I told them the story about something that happened in our school. And it was I wasn't even I was a teacher at that time, not a retired teacher, but that was important because they heard something that actually happened in a classroom. So make your voice heard. Use your voice. Mostly make it spoken word, but also make it the written word because that is important. Just as a letter to the editor can change a whole lot of minds. So I'm here to say to you, you're important. You've got important information. It's at the tip of your fingertips, at the end of your tongue. And I would love for you to be stepping up and speaking out. I want you to listen. This is a poem that I wrote, but it speaks to all of us. And it's the question that we really search for after we've retired. Where will I be written is the name of it. And I wrote this before I retired, but it goes well right now. What place is mine? I need to know. The future, the present, the past. Have I given enough to be noted as a molder of things that last? Did anyone see? Did anyone care? Or did I hurry through yesterday too fast? The answer still evades me. No artist am I, but plain. The aching doubt still pervades me, and how do I measure the gain? The present is clouded with unfought wars. rough edges and words too militant to speak, and sometimes happy thoughts and warm feelings and everyday answers to seek. But which of these will make a difference? And why do I find myself here? How do I survey the present? And how do I persevere? The future, she's my answer. Do I dare again to draw the sword? Do I still have the strength that is needed to win, but maybe lose my reward? The passing stranger bids me enter, and with a flick of the finger, the plea, I enter the unknown with one certainty that the future depends upon me and it depends upon you and what you choose to do. I ask you and individuals like you who have already stepped in, have given their lives to kids and public education. Let's go forward, join hands, and let's once again lead the way for what needs to happen. Let's tell our stories. Let's do our ones on ones, and let's use our voice. I thank you very much for listening.
Wow, Peggy. Thank you. And what a rousing and meaningful end. I really, I appreciate your poetry. I appreciate your voice. And what you shared is so apropos about telling your story, in that nobody can argue with your story. If it's your story, nobody can
It's
go back and say, did that really, come on, kind of thing. It really is your truth. And we all have that within in us. So I want to just again thank you, Peggy. And Dr. Craig Carter, do you want to say hello for 30 seconds or less? I know brevity may not be your strong suit. Craig
Thank you
Carter
so
is our,
much, Karen. Great job, Peggy. We appreciate you. It's good to hear your voice and see your face. Okay. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
and
Appreciate our
for
Thank you.
GAE retired.
thank you. And for those who do not know, Dr. Craig Carter is our current executive director of the Georgia Association of Educators. I always use the last couple minutes just to share some things. This is our newsletter that went out yesterday. And there is an upcoming program sponsored by the GAEPD committee dealing with AI. And if you were attending, we're doing these programs once, we're doing them twice every other month. Like this program was presented in November. But if you were on that, plan on attending again in December because it will be a different sharing. And we know AI is the coming up and presenting interesting situations, whether we're in actively in education or not. Again, the GPO WEP, we are trying to get this heard in the Senate. It did pass the House, and we had some people voting for it in the House that we didn't count on, and some other people who had signed on as co-sponsors who did not go through and vote, but they deserve a thank you, and hopefully we can get this heard before Congress adjourns. There'll be our district meetings happening, and GAE members can attend any district meeting. This is after the GAE Board of Directors meets, and we, I think, have at least two of the GAE retired board members on here. Vivian Brooks and Brenda Montgomery are with us today. The TRS report that GAE Retired puts together via our member Lisa Underwood is the best report, I think, that I've ever seen done for TRS. So take a look at that. And of course, TRS meets when active people are working, but we do have several GAE retired members that go through and attend those board of trustees meeting virtually. We're presenting Lobby and Learn before the General Assembly cranks up on January 13th. We will have our business meeting on January 10th. Pre-retirement seminars coming up for 2025, open to all GAE members and non-members. So wealth of information, share this early and often. GAE Day at the Capitol. I'm going to go through and stop here because I just want to say that our January GAE retired lunch bunch, first Wednesday of the month. Sorry, I lied. Second Wednesday of the month for January. Joe Fleming, who is our Director of Government Relations and our Chief Lobbyist, will be giving us the lay of the land for our upcoming General Assembly. Thank you for being here today. It's 12:31. I've gone over by a minute. Thank you for everything you do and have done for public education, and happy holidays to everyone. I hope yours is merry and bright. So thank you so much for being here. Have a great holiday season. And again, thank you, Peggy Cochran. Bye-bye,
Thank
y'all.
you. Bye-bye.